You remember the box. We all remember the box. If you've seen the Clone Wars and you're anything like me, it's one of your favorite episodes, if not the best. I recently rewatched it, and yeah, does it take some of the characters a little out of character? Yeah, kind of. But the actual box, the challenges, they're so fun to watch. Beautifully animated, super nice action scenes. I had so much fun. But when I was rewatching, there was a little nagging thing, a little voice in my head saying, you know, this is kind of badly designed. Before talking about the box from a design standpoint, let's explain what it is and what the tests are. Moralo Val is tasked with taking a set of bounty hunters and narrowing it down to a team of 5, removes their weapons, and puts them in the box, and tells them that this will simulate certain situations which may come up during the job. So not only are we trying to filter for the best bounty hunters generally, but we're also trying to select them specifically for the job. 10 bounty hunters are selected as contestants. Cad Bane kills one of them before the start, but there's still a set of 10 due to a last-minute addition, that being Obi-Wan disguised as bounty hunter Rako Hardeen. In the first room, poison gas is released, and the hunters stay above it on rising platforms that eventually reach the ceiling, which then lowers, forcing them to either cling between the pillars or figure out the real way to escape the gas, which is through a hole in the floor, actually the same hole that the gas came out of. In the episode, Obi-Wan is the one that figures this out, using some Jedi breath holding to gain some extra time down there. Once he finds the hole, he just yells it out to everyone else, so they follow him down. No casualties. The second room has a bunch of sliding bars with blades on the end of them. Obi-Wan realizes that they come out in a consistent pattern, and one can jump on pillar to pillar to reach a hole in the ceiling. He tells everyone, and they escape with only 3 casualties. The third room has ray shields on the walls and floor that slowly narrow. The room can only be deactivated by one of the hunters reaching through a ray shield to press a button. A serum is provided that can only be taken by one of the contestants. Cad Bane stops this guy, Daron, from taking it, since nobody can speak Daron's language. Obi-Wan, knowing his xenobiology, explains that Parwans can handle the serum, so Daron takes it and deactivates the shield. 2 people die in this one. The final challenge is a test of sniping skill, where contestants must use a sniper to hit a moving target. Every miss shrinks the platform everyone is standing on, which, coincidentally, is above a pit of flames. In the episode, this guy tries and fails, perishing in those flames. Obi-Wan uses his Jedi powers to basically aim assist, winning the challenge and ending the box. Okay, so that's actually not true. Moralo Val tries to cheat and kill Obi-Wan, but everyone's getting pissed off at him, so Cad Bane rescues him, and Dooku forces Moralo Val and Rako Hardeen into single combat. And actually, let's talk about that. Count Dooku turns the box into an arena with what seems like little effort, and Moralo Val uses his little notepad to manipulate the area, including creating a maze in the floor that utilizes the flamethrowers, which are pretty specific to this floor. So I think either the showrunners just didn't put that much thought into it, or the arena was designed beforehand for this room. And why would that be? Well, this is the last room, and we have to narrow it down to 5 contestants. Dooku says vaguely that extras will be culled, but he doesn't explain how. My theory is that if there were an excess number of survivors in this room, they would all be forced into the arena and have to duke it out until there are only 5 left. But, that's just my theory. I don't think it's canon. Here's my thesis. The box fails at its intention to narrow down a group of bounty hunters into the best team for the job. It fails to test for necessary, important skills that are needed for the job. It tests for skills that are unnecessary. It fails to account for specialized positions that need some skills but not others. And it includes an escape room style that is not conducive to any of its goals. Moralo Val says that Obi-Wan has saved everyone's skin multiple times, which is true, but he makes it seem like this is some horrible breakage of the room instead of exactly how the room was designed. In the last room, it's obvious. Only one person needs to make those sniper shots while everyone else is just twiddling their thumbs. The ray shield room is the same way. Only Daron needs to get through the ray shield. Everyone else has to just sit there and hope that he does it fast enough. Even the choosing of Daron as the person to take the serum is not really a challenge because he's the only one that's volunteering. If Obi-Wan wasn't there, the same thing would have happened. They would have given him the serum because even if they don't understand his language, he's the only one who's actively trying to take the serum. However, it's the first two rooms that especially vex me because they seem to be designed like escape rooms. There is a hazard that they have to get past, yes, but the main challenge is figuring out how to get out. Now, if Moralo Val was looking for some clever puzzle solver, I guess that kind of makes sense, except that you only need one puzzle solver per room. Obi-Wan figured it out both times, which means you're not getting a team of puzzle solvers. You're getting one puzzle solver, which doesn't really add anything, especially if they die before the end of the box. It's stupid. The whole point of the box is to narrow down a team of the best 5, not the best 1 and the 4 people who are the best at following the leader. Designing them this way creates an uncontrollable element. In both the Blade Room and the Poison Room, the number of deaths is heavily dependent on how fast someone can figure out the puzzle. Let's say Obi-Wan wasn't there. If they were just sitting there for 5 minutes not knowing how to get out, more people would have died in both rooms. Which means that in this box, you are either losing people who you didn't need to lose because you don't have a good puzzle solver, or people are getting past your room who you would have preferred to die after testing their skills for longer because some guy figured it out too fast. And keep in mind, this is not necessary. Nobody told Moralo Val that they had to be designed like puzzle rooms. If I was designing the box, I would make it very clear what the solution is so that it's an equal test of everybody's skill. Let's talk about the plan to kidnap the Chancellor. That's what the box is for, after all. The Chancellor is delivering a speech on Naboo during the Festival of Light, where he and a large crowd will be surrounded by a giant ray shield. That crowd includes Jedi, and we can expect that in a straight fight, a Jedi bodyguard beats any bounty hunter, anytime. Moralo Val's goal is to get the Chancellor alive to a rendezvous where he can give him to Dooku. The plan he comes up with requires 6 people. A leader, 2 decoy guards, a sniper, a getaway driver, and someone who can get them through the ray shield, which I'm calling the locksmith because it's snappier, even though it's not actually a locksmith, it's just Daron. All 6 team members are equipped with a holographic disguise matrix, a finicky new technology that allows the wearer to disguise themselves. This is important for the plan, both because there's only one guy who can be the locksmith, and he cannot disguise as a guard normally because he doesn't have legs, but also because there will be multiple quick changes that cannot be done with traditional disguises. Everyone disguises themselves as a royal guard and gets to their places. The getaway driver is somewhere nearby. The decoys are as close as they can get to the Chancellor, hopefully on the inside of the ray shield, but not necessarily. The sniper is in position somewhere with a sniping position, I don't know. And the leader changes their disguise to that of a civilian and blends into the crowd. The locksmith, on the outside of the ray shield, uses his Daron powers to move through the ray shield and turn it off. The sniper, with an unobstructed shot, shoots the Chancellor with a stun blast. The decoys move in and feign to help the Chancellor, but in the chaos, they put a disguise matrix on his unconscious body and change him into a guard. And at the same time, one of the decoys changes their own disguise to that of the Chancellor. So it looks like the Chancellor is conscious and is being helped away, which distracts everyone and draws away the Jedi. Meanwhile, the leader drags away the real Chancellor and meets up with the getaway driver, where they escape to the rendezvous point. From a writing standpoint, you could... But whatever. In universe, it's a fine plan. So let's look at each position and decide what skills they need. Let's skip past the basic stuff like discretion and being willing to murder. Like, we're hiring bounty hunters. We can just filter for that in our selection process. Moralo Val has been promised the leadership slot. He's locked into that slot. The locksmith has to be able to not draw attention to themselves while in the disguise. They also have to be Daron because they need to pass through the ray shield. The decoys have to be stealthy enough to make multiple disguise changes in the middle of a crowd without anyone noticing. Like, this is by far the hardest part of the plan. Why didn't they drop smoke pellets or something? The Jedi are right there. Like, the Mace Windu is right there. How did he not notice? Speaking of the Jedi, the decoys are by far the most likely to have a run in with them. I don't think the plan was for them to get captured by Jedi, but we have to work in the contingency that the Jedi are going to be attacking the decoys. I mean, they could just go quietly, but if I'm picking them, I want my decoys to have a little bit of combat skill. The sniper has to be good at sniping. The getaway driver has to be a good driver. You're no doubt already seeing the main problem here, which is the fact that not all group members need the same skills. The box was kind of flawed at conception, since this mission requires so many specialized positions. Let's take the Blade Room, for example. Even if it was extremely relevant, like it was testing some skill that was important for half of the members of the team, that's only half. If the best sniper in the group was not very good at Mario jumping and they died in the Blade Room, that would be a waste, since they don't have to be good at Mario jumping for their own job, even if other people do, which, I mean, they don't, but we'll get to that. This is especially obvious with Daron, who is vital to the plan. Why are we letting him participate in the box? It's ridiculous. Moving on from that criticism, let's look at a different one. How many of the skills required for the job are adequately tested for by the box? Physical strength is necessary for the leader, but Morale Val is locked in for that, so ignoring that one. Stealth/blending into a crowd is very important, and it is not tested for at all in the box. There's combat, which could be tested for if you're expecting the contestants to start fighting, but why would you expect that? The rooms are not designed for like competition at all. Being as generous as possible, we can say that maybe the contestants could fight each other, so I'll give it a half point. So we're at 0.5 out of 2. A small addendum here I have to make after editing. I have found one bounty hunter that consistently fights other people in the box for no reason, that being Embo. He does knock people off the pillars in the first room, which makes sense because he's trying to get to the highest one. But he also randomly chokes out this other guy in room 2 for no apparent reason, and he doesn't even kill him because you can see him later. I only caught this because I was specifically trying to figure out how this guy died, and yeah, Embo just chokes, he just grabs him for no reason. So I don't know how that fits into the argument. Next is the locksmith's ability to pass through ray shields. Even though I think it would be better to keep Daron out of the box, I can't say that this isn't tested for. So, full point for that. Then we have the sniper's ability to be a sniper, and buckle in for this one. So, on the one hand, the sniping room only requires one person to make the shots, which is good. We only need one sniper after all. So, a gold star for that one. On the other hand, this is a terrible test of sniping skills. The difficulty of the shot in the mission is that it's from far away, not that like the Chancellor's going to be zipping around. Turns out he can zip around, but Marlowe Val doesn't know that. Instead, the sniper has to hit a fast-moving target at a much shorter range than will be necessary for a job. If there's someone like a Han Solo who's a good shot at medium range, they may pass the sniper test without being qualified to actually hit the sniper shot. Conversely, the speed and randomness of the target make it so that a skilled marksman is not necessarily going to pass, even if they are qualified for the actual sniping job. This target changes direction at a 90-degree angle at random times. I do appreciate the detail that Obi-Wan is able to predict the turns because he's a Jedi and can see the future. That was very clever. But it doesn't change the fact that it's ridiculously unfair for people that aren't force sensitive. And it's not like you're testing for people that can perfectly hit a moving target. You're testing for someone who can hit an old man. He's not going to be moving that fast, and he's not going to make any erratic movements. So this test is just unfair. I'm giving sniping a generous half point. Finally, the getaway driver is not tested for at all. And I get that's a little silly, like, oh, the getaway driver needs their own room in the box, but they do. Can you imagine if you narrowed the box down to 5 people and nobody there knew how to drive? I get that it's not a likely scenario. and that the getaway driver does not have to be like a super fast driver, since hopefully they won't have anyone following them. But this is an entire position on the team that has one skill they require, and it's not tested for in the box, which is designed to choose a team. This is ridiculous. So, in terms of simulating certain situations which might come up during the job, the box scores a 2 out of 5 points, which is not great. So what skills do our box graduates definitely have? Well, from room 1, technically, someone could be brave slash smart slash stupid enough to immediately jump into the hole the gas is coming out of, and they would just win room 1. And if everyone did that, then room 1 guarantees nothing. The second room is a little better. It requires all of the survivors to be able to do platforming. It doesn't require them to be good at dodging, since some of them could have gotten lucky in avoiding the blades without any skill. Room 3 guarantees that survivors will be good at balancing on pillars and not stopping Daron from doing his thing. In room 4, one person has to be able to hit a moving target. First of all, this makes it pretty clear that the box's aim to select the best bounty hunter team is an utter failure. Mike Ehrmantraut from Breaking Bad would be a great bounty hunter. He's good at finding people, he's clever with making plans, he's a skilled marksman. On the other hand, Simone Biles is a great athlete, but I personally haven't seen any evidence that she would make a good bounty hunter. However, Simone Biles has a significantly better chance of surviving the box than Mike because she can do all of those stupid jumps and balancing, whereas Mike is an old man. And this focus on athleticism is obvious in the team that ends up surviving. We have a Jedi, a former professional acrobat, a guy who can float, Embo, who can apparently jump 20 feet in the air, and a Cad Bane. 4 out of 5 people is enough for me to make my point. People who were probably really skilled at non-athletic stuff died because they're not professional acrobats. This guy comes to mind. He literally invented the magic hologram disguise they use in the actual plan. He's probably pretty good at using it. Maybe he would have made a good decoy. But he died in the fucking blade room. Are you kidding me? Like, why? Anyway, the heavy focus on athletics might make sense for a different job. Balance and athletics might be important there, but is not important for this plan. Mike Ehrmantraut would be great for this plan, and Simone Biles, maybe she's a contract killer. I don't know, I haven't met her. But as far as what I know about these two people, Mike Ehrmantraut would be better in every single role, except the locksmith, where they would both die, because they're not par ones. My point is, you would never know about Mike Ehrmantraut's skills based on the box, which only tests a very narrow set of skills that are not relevant to the job. I don't want to just be a complainer. Let's say that I am Maralowi Val's intern, and he watches this video and yells at me to do something better if I'm so smart. So let's do that. Let's create our own box. My goals are to address all of my own criticisms while working within the technical constraints of the box that we see. So I can't introduce some crazy technology that doesn't exist. I'm also assuming that Maralowi Val wants to make the box flashy and exciting to impress both the contestants and Dooku with his technological genius. So I'll do my best to maintain that design principle. So no box where everyone just sits there and takes an IQ test. Here's what I came up with. First, we need to rethink how we're recruiting people. We have 10 contestants and we want to end up with 5, which is fine to me. I don't want to kill more people, but Maralowi Val does. He is constantly upset at how few people are dying, even though he got the right number of people. It actually would have been one too few if he'd succeeded in killing Reiko Hardin. And we need insurance, so I want more people. However, how am I going to add more people? Maralo and Dooku probably sent out an invite list for all of the bounty hunters that match their specifications. So I don't want to just go out and be like, ooh, why didn't you add this bounty hunter? Because there's probably a reason. Either they were invited but declined. They weren't invited because they were too inexperienced. Maybe they were too soft-hearted and Dooku didn't trust them. So, no bounty hunters. But why not assassins? Okay, I admit, the line between bounty hunter and assassin is pretty slim in Star Wars. Every bounty hunter is an assassin, and almost every assassin is a bounty hunter. In fact, the only assassins we see that are not bounty hunters are Sith assassins, which, don't work for money and therefore are ineligible. The only assassins that we want are the ones that work for money, thus are also bounty hunters. But assassination and bounty hunting are different skills. An assassination is just a hit. You give someone a name and a location and they go and kill that guy. A bounty, on the other hand, is usually a fugitive that the bounty hunter has to track down. Bounty hunters are usually assassins, but they're also private investigators. Take Boba Fett, for example, in the first instance of bounty hunting we see in the movies. Boba Fett doesn't even fight Han Solo. He just figures out where he's going and calls Vader. And this is a success. So why do I care about this distinction? Well, the job is already planned out. The clever private investigator portion of bounty hunting is already taken care of by Moralo Val. The skills that make a good bounty hunter are unnecessary, while the skills that make a good assassin, sniping and combat and blending in, are important. Which might mean that when Moralo Val and Dooku chose the best bounty hunters, they were operating on the wrong metrics. Going by bounty tallies or whatever does not tell you about the thousands of assassins somewhere in the galaxy who aren't bounty hunters, or thousands of assassins that are good assassins but not necessarily good bounty hunters because they're not good at the private investigator section. We don't mind those people because their deficiencies are not going to be an issue because the plan just requires them to follow our instructions. I would argue that these assassins were probably overlooked in the selection process. I don't know. I mean, I'm not personal friends with Dooku. I don't know how he decided, but I would at least raise this point in defense of adding more people. My version of the box is designed for a group of 15 to 20 people. And among those 15 or 20 is not Daron. We're yanking him out. He doesn't have to participate. He gets to hang out in the control room. And you know what? So does this guy. If I'm designing the box, I'm not letting this guy in. Dooku should hire him, and if he won't, then I will, with my measly intern salary. Now, room 1. When the contestants enter, the upper part of the room has a bunch of flying probe droids. We already know that these probe droids are part of the box, so my modifications to them are not that big. Like, Moralo Val could do this. Moralo Val comes out and gives this little speech on the screen, and then platforms slide out of the wall to create basically the parkour sequence we had in room 2. Except this time, the boxes aren't moving, so it's pretty easy. That's where the probe droids come in. As Moralo Val will explain, there's no guesswork to this, it's just explaining the rules. Probe droids will come in and watch you, but there are less probe droids than there are hunters, so there will be a time that the probe droid is not looking at you, and then you can jump from platform to platform. But if you move faster than a certain set speed, I don't know the Star Wars units, or you jump, or you attack a probe droid, then any probe droids looking at you will shoot you on sight. And then to add a time constraint and some visual flair, the floor will erupt into flames after a minute and the platforms will start receding. This is primarily a test of acting natural under pressure, which is my way of testing blending in. And this is important for every member. It's especially important for the decoys because they have to, and the leader, but that's Moralo Val and he's not participating. It's especially important for the decoys because they are going to need to act natural under a crowd and perform actions when nobody's looking. So they have to be aware when they're being watched and able to act quickly when they're not. The sniper and the getaway driver both still have to be at least decent at blending in because they need to get to their stations while disguised as guards. So I think it's fair to expect them to be at least decent enough to pass this room. Room 2. And this one is probably the weirdest one that I thought of, but I really want to test people's driving skills. There are 20 little chairs, each of them with a display screen and a steering wheel style controller. Essentially, Star Wars versions of these things. I don't think it's crazy to expect these to exist in Star Wars. They're awesome. Every universe should have them. Moralo Val will tell everyone to get in a chair. And once everyone does, the chairs will strap you in, restraining you. And any unoccupied chairs will have a blade come out of them, which will show what happens to you if you fail this challenge. The chair kills you. The chairs are connected to a remote control airspeeder that you can control with your steering wheel as if it's a real airspeeder, and you have to fly it through an obstacle course. We could just make this a simulation and make them all play Microsoft Flight Simulator, but for that visual flair, I'm saying we should have actual physical remote control airspeeders that all have to fly together through the obstacle course in the same room, just above everyone's heads. If your airspeeder makes it to the end of the obstacle course, then your chair gets lowered through the floor and you get released, where you can move on to the next room. This is true for everyone except whoever passes the obstacle course first. This person gets lowered in a different place where they escape. They get to finish the room. They're excused from doing any of the later rooms because this person is locked in as our getaway driver, which means they do not need any of the skills that are tested later. I like this idea of removing a hunter once they've passed a room that is, the only room that's necessary for them. Like, the getaway driver doesn't need to be good at sniping or general combat, which, spoiler alert, are what we're testing in the next 2 rooms. Also, if you're wondering why I'm testing all the other bounty hunters for driving skills, it's important. It's not central to the plan for them to be able to drive, but all of these bounty hunters need to make a quick getaway after the plan is done. Just because they don't have to go to the rendezvous doesn't mean they don't have to get the hell out of Dodge. I don't actually know what Moralo Ival's plan was for all these other people, but there had to be one. He didn't just leave them to get arrested, or if he did, then he's stupid. So yeah, everyone needs to be good at driving so they can get away. Room 3. Everyone has to step out onto different beams that will come out based on how many people are left. And once everyone's on a beam, the platform that they stepped out onto will be gone, and they just have to stand on the beam. If they step off it, they die in some hazard on the bottom. Everyone's little floating platform has a sniper rifle loaded with, rounds that can shoot a target but can't just shoot another hunter, because that would be cheating. The opposite wall, which is as far away as we can get it, suddenly populates with targets. There are 3 big targets and 3 small ones. We're talking about as small as the ones that appear in the episode, assuming the wall is further away, and a little smaller if the wall is the same distance. These are stationary targets, to be clear. The hunters are tasked with hitting 3 targets, and if they miss a single target, their platform will drop them to the bottom and kill them. They can choose to hit the 3 big targets, which will be much easier and is almost guaranteed if you're, not a terrible shot. However, the first person to hit all 3 of the small targets will get to leave and will be excused from participating in the next room. Other than the sniper, only 2 people are coming out of that next room, so it's in the bounty hunter's best interest to try to shoot the smaller targets, which is good because we're testing here for our sniper. The sniper that we end up getting will not only be a good shot, but also be able to act fast under pressure, since they're also the first one to hit all 3 shots. And that's important for the plan, where we'll have a limited amount of time before Palpatine is escorted away by security. The sniper is selected and excused, and everyone else either dies attempting to snipe or they make it to the next room. And our final room. The final room's purpose is to narrow the remaining contestants down to 2 people. If this has already happened, great. I mean, we don't really need combat skill. But if there are in excess of people, then we're basically just doing what I theorized was the secret final room in the canon episode, which is an arena. That's it. No, nothing else. It's just fighting hand to hand because there's no weapons. These combatants will be our decoys, and as I said, they might be fighting Jedi. And hand to hand is really the way to go if you're doing that. The 2 remaining people are locked in as our decoys. I think that this version of the box is maybe a little less cinematic. The writers and animators of the Clone Wars probably did the right thing. But I think my version of the box makes a lot more sense for the actual intended purpose of the box as stated in the show. Anyway, that's my thoughts on this episode of television.